It's that time again, Our Town Live, where friends, family, people you know, and others you'd rather not know share with us their unique bits of wisdom. And now, here's Herb, your host, for another show.
Our guest today is Stacey Chillemi, author of A Woman in Control, and now a woman who still has epilepsy. She had a moment of clarity when she was in college. She knew she developed epilepsy when she was 5, and they think it was from encephalitis. In those years, epilepsy was so hush-hush that by the time she got to college, she wanted more information. When she checked college libraries, they had maybe 5 books with information, and all of it was written by and for doctors. She adds, "It was very over my head." She wanted something that the average person could understand. In the process of getting information, she discovered her story helped others with the affliction. She wanted something that the average person could understand. She needed information. In the process, she discovered her story helped with others with the affliction. She began writing books at the end of the 1990s, by which point she had married and determined to live a full and normal life and had become pregnant. Chillemi has since written 5 books, including her debut book, Epilepsy, You're Not Alone, An Epileptic's View on How to Cope with the Disorder, and another one, prompted by raising her own children, My Mommy Has Epilepsy. She does not drive because of her epilepsy, and she has had seizures in front of her children. That, she says, moved her to record her own experiences in book form. All kinds of people have epilepsy, and it's not something you develop only when you're young or because you're poor or any of the actual cliches, she says, but it's something that you have to believe you can live with so you can pursue a happy and safe life. Her goal is to help people with epilepsy learn how to accept and love themselves. So I now introduce you to Stacey Chillemi.
Hi, my name is Stacey Chillemi, and I am a health coach. I had started this a very long time. At age of 5, I had developed epilepsy, and I struggled all my life with this disorder. And as I got older, I had entered college, and as you know, it's a lot of stress with studying and doing a lot of the responsibilities that comes along with college. And I was having a very hard time. I was struggling and having seizures, and I had written a letter to the Epilepsy Foundation, and they have a magazine. And I asked them to publish the magazine, and I asked others with the disorder how they cope with epilepsy. And surprisingly enough, I received hundreds of letters from all over the United States and Canada from people that have the disorder and wanted to share their story and share what they do to try to cope and live with this disorder.
Let me ask you, at what age did all of this start? Not the epilepsy, but your feeling that you were maybe out of place and you didn't know really what to do. At what age, or how long ago was that?
I think, growing up as a teenager, I think when you start to go through your hormonal stages and you start to really see others and you start to compare yourself and try to figure out who you are as a person, I think that's when it all had started. And I realized, and, having seizures in front of people and trying to be, just like everybody else, I think it really started as a teenager. But it wasn't until I got to college, and I had actually written that letter in that magazine, and I got the feedback from everybody else that I realized that, hey, I'm not the only one, and there is a way to get around this. And that's when I started to, I had written a book on epilepsy, but at that point in college, what I did was I took a lot of the feedback that I got and I applied it to my own life. And then I had started working in the city when I graduated with a big corporation. And they had, one of the big producers had seen me have a seizure, and he had actually stepped over me and kept walking. And 30 minutes later, I was actually released from my job. And I had, Yeah, it was crazy. And, so right then and there, I didn't let it get me down. I had actually, spoken to some people who I know in the health industry, and they actually asked me to come to Washington, D.C., and I spoke in front of Congress, and I spoke about job discrimination, and I spoke about my epilepsy. And I remember Rush Holt, he was a politician, and he had a sister, actually, that had epilepsy. And I remember looking at him. He was in the front row, and he actually took out a handkerchief and started wiping the tears away. And he had walked over to me after the speech that I gave, and he shook my hand, and he said, your speech brought back a lot of memories. My sister had it, and at that point, I realized that, I wasn't alone. And, and it not just affects the person that has the disorder, but it affects the people around you, the people who love you, your caregivers. It's when someone has any type of condition or disorder or disease, it affects everyone around them, including that person. And so then as time went on, I had written a little blog in Blogger on Google, and I had actually 400 followers, and then I decided to create my own blog, and I had created my own blog, and actually it went from 400 to 10,000 followers, and I realized that there were a lot of people interested in about healing themselves naturally, because that's what the blog was about. I had I was writing for an herbalist, and I was doing a lot of research on healing and a lot of research on how to heal the body naturally. And I found out so much interesting information. I started applying that information to my own life, and I went from having 9 seizures a month to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. And I realized that, there is, healing it's not just about popping a pill in life. It's about, taking care of your body. 90%. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Really quick, do you still have that blog? And if so, what is its name?
I had reconstructed the blog. The blog is called thecompleteherbalguide.com, and today we have 200,000 monthly visitors at our blog, believe it or not.
That's wonderful. You mentioned in your bio that you sent me a spiritual awakening. What exactly do you mean by that?
There's a time in your life when you actually realize that there is more to life. You have to be in sync with yourself, mind, body, and soul. And if you're not in sync with yourself, you're not going to be able to actually function at full force. I really believe that you really have to have a clear focus on yourself, the world around you, and you really have to take care of yourself, and it all comes in sync. Feeding yourself the right food, exercising, really understanding yourself. I'm a big believer in yoga and meditation and just, and relaxing the mind, because we always have to refuel ourselves as well. The body is not a machine. We have to really, care for our body, care for our mind, and that's how we keep our everything strong. And, by taking care of your mind, body, and soul, and you could really see a huge improvement in your life, in your health, and many other things.
We have a lot of listeners from different backgrounds, different stages of life, and you mentioned to me one thing that probably a lot of people are going through. You mentioned a few that were really eating you up besides your epilepsy. You mentioned a dysfunctional family, low self-esteem, a feeling of loss, not knowing where I wanted to go. This is really heavy. Did you find that the spiritual awakening has taken over and above or thrown these things out? How would you say these things got tossed away?
It's over 70% of people in the United States alone come from a dysfunctional family, and it's very hard when you live in a dysfunctional family to actually get the care and the certain things that you may need, especially when you're a child growing up. And believe it or not, your childhood affects your adulthood. And you'll talk to people and they'll go back and they'll revert back to their childhood, and you'll see certain things they say and do, and and it all reverts back to their childhood, the way they grew up, things that they encountered, obstacles that came into their lives. These things have a huge impact, and they follow us through our adulthood life. And you really, as you grow up in life, and you really have to, a lot of times people have low self-esteem. I had low self-esteem for a long time, and I really had to find myself, and I had to learn, accept myself for who I am, love myself for who I am, and I had to, move on with my life and, set goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, and just, and decide who do I want to be in life, where do I want to be in the next 5 or 10 years, and I set up a plan for myself, and I moved forward in my life, and I am this day. I'm a very confident individual. I really, I feel for others. I've helped a lot of people throughout my life, and I belong to a lot of different organizations, and I reach out to help others, and it's a great feeling when you can help somebody else. And at this stage in my life, I'm a very confident individual. I am a very loving and caring individual, and I try to do as much as I can to help the people around me, and to do whatever I can to make the world a better place.
You mentioned that you have thousands and thousands of visitors to your website. Mm-hmm. What is the factor, do you think, that has most contributed to your success as a blogger and an author?
I think it's my love for what I do. I think when you truly love what you do and you have a passion for what you do, you put your all into it. You put your 300% in, and it shows. And when you speak to people and when you do lectures and when you help others, people could see that, when, people can see when you truly believe in what you do, and when you truly love something that you want to do. It shows in your actions, it shows in your words, it shows in your body language. And, I think people see how much I really care and how much I want to help others. And people, there are many people like me who want to feel better, who want to, be able to, be able to feel better, be able to think better, to be able to, improve their lives in some way, shape, or form. And, and these are the people who are trying to find answers. And, and this is basically why so many people have an interest in the Complete Herbal Guide, is because it talks about everything from mind, body, and soul to exercise, health, and it covers all different tracks. And people are, looking for answers, and they find them.
You talked to me about natural healing. Mm-hmm. What exactly is natural healing? I have all kinds of issues. I'm an older man, and I've got a lot of issues, and a couple of them I've solved in the last few months, interestingly, naturally, with probiotics. Is probiotics a natural item, and what are others that you can suggest?
Well, I actually take a probiotic every night, and I'm a big believer in it. Yeah, my allergy. I used to have terrible allergies, and when I started taking probiotics, my allergies, went away. Probiotics can help lots of different things, and it's great. It's great if you have digestive problems. It's great for the gut. And it helps a lot of issues, and healing yourself, sometimes we do need medication. I still take medication for my epilepsy, but it's, I did not do as well until I started taking care of my body and started to, work on lots of different things. I worked on how I handle stress in life. I worked on, getting enough of sleep, because sleep is a big factor too. People have had many health issues related to a lack of sleep, and and sleep depression, and I had done some work for Ariana Huffington, and she wrote a book a couple years back about sleep deprivation and how it affected her life, how it almost killed her. Because she just, she was on the go, constantly doing, what she loved, but she didn't get enough of sleep, she didn't get enough of rest, and it almost hurt her tremendously health-wise.